in a world where the number of movies available is great, but many are so bad, you'll learn a new definition of hate. One man sifts and reviews through the movie sludge. One man will be the movie cop, jury, and judge. He goes by many names, but you know him by MoviesMerica.
Hey, all you beautiful movie-loving people out there, live from a red carpet somewhere, surrounded by celebrities. This is the MoviesMerica podcast with Van Ebert, where movie reviews meet cold brews. Van will review your favorite and maybe not so favorite movies while enjoying some ice-cold beers and saying cheers. Now let's head into the theater and join our illustrious movie reviewer du jour, who's no doubt got the beer ready to pour, Van Ebert.
Hello. It's your mate Van Ebert, inviting you to come right in, and we're going to take part in the MoviesMerica podcast. I'm just sitting here in my flat, enjoying a right good pint of some good pale gold ale. Oh, it goes down so smooth. Thank you. I hope you fancy a podcast today. And we'll be going over the movie Last Night in Soho.
Baby, you don't know what you're saying.
So what brings you down then?
I'm studying London College of Fashion.
Room is on the top floor.
It's perfect. I love it. If I could live any place and any time, I'd live here in London in the 60s. Last night, I saw something in my dreams. There was a girl.
And you are?
Sandie.
I got this kind of gift. I can see people, places, things others can't.
This is the closest most people ever get to their dreams.
They're not just dreams.
Jack, I don't want to do this.
You think you can just walk away?
They really happened.
Well, that's not rubbish. It might make you keen to grab a pint of ale.
And that's what I'll do right now. And I'll drop the British accent. I'm sure all my listeners are like, thank God. All right. So, okay. Well, hey, now that we're back stateside, let me introduce you again to MoviesMerica podcast. And I hope that trailer helped entice you and at least inform you as to what I'll be reviewing today here. That is a Edgar Wright movie called Last Night in Soho. Just came out. And before we get too far down the road here in the Last Night in Soho here, just let me remind you that this podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher. We're on Amazon Music. And also we're on MoviesMerica.com. We're on Pandora. We're a little bit everywhere there, baby. So, and feel free, particularly on Apple Podcasts here, which I think is the only place you can do this, to give it a review. I could be wrong about that. But give it a 5-star rating here if you are so inclined to do that very thing. Also, yours truly, MoviesMerica, is on Twitter and Instagram under MoviesMerica, of course. And that is there just in case you want to share anything with me or check out my post and, lodge your complaints. with the MoviesMerica board. It was like, Van Ebert, he was just preposterous and inappropriate, and I found his content very, very offensive. Or Van is very lovely and very refreshing, and he makes my life worth living. So, any of those two extremes, nothing in the middle. I don't want anything in the middle. I just want those two extremes, and that's it, okay? All right. Okay. So, and just to let you know here, as you're listening to the episodes of MoviesMerica, you'll find out I'm mostly reviewing new movies, but I'll also be reviewing old movies. And, as we all do, we love mixing things we love, right? Who doesn't? It'd be pretty weird if you didn't, right? Mixing things you love, like back in the day, chocolate and peanut butter are mixed together. Well, I like combinations like movies and beer. And on every episode, I do drink a beer ski here, and I just kind of give my thoughts on it. And this podcast episode is no different, okay? So since we are reviewing a movie that takes place in London, I thought I would go with a little Boddington's Pub Ale, which is very, very tasty. It's actually brewed in Manchester, over in the UK, of course. And I have to say, my first impressions of it when I took my first drink of it is it was creamy, it was airy, very frothy. It's got a hint of nutmeg in there. It's like I could taste something that tasted kind of like cinnamon, but not quite. A little bit more bitter and a little bit more aftertaste to it than cinnamon. And I'm gonna guess it's nutmeg, cumin, something like that. But yeah, Boddington's Pub Ale. It's just a pale gold ale over across the pond. And it is pretty tasty there. So go ahead and check out Boddington's Pub Ale if you can get your hands on it. But with that, now that you know that what I will be hydrating myself with during this review, let's go right into it, huh? Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So last night in Soho. So this is a movie that is hard to categorize. Okay, It is a mystery, thriller, horror, slasher, bloody, avant-garde, stylish, coming into their own kind of tale. It's intriguing. That is one thing that makes it intriguing is, if there were still blockbuster videos around, I would hate to be the Blockbuster video clerk that has to decide like what section back in the day Blockbuster Video would have put this VHS tape of Last Night in Soho. So unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of Blockbuster videos around, but fortunately for that purpose, there isn't, because I don't know where you would put this movie at. If someone was, putting a Luger gun to my head and making me choose, I'd put it in the thriller section. Although it's got some horror elements in it, but the basic plot. Okay, so it just starts off with our protagonist, our heroine. Her name is Eloise, or Ellie for short, and she's just a girl that's starting off in life. She's leaving home to go to fashion designer school in London, and she's from out in rural London, so pretty much like or not rural London, but rural England. So she's pretty much from the English version of Green Acres, so Mayberry, if you will. And she's going into the big city for the first time. And it's told that her mother, back when she was her age, had gone into London, and it just proved to be too much. And you'll see how that had an effect on her mother in this movie. But anyway, so let's move it forward, right? Okay, so she leaves her English countryside home, a little town, to get into the big brights of the big old city of London, particularly Soho, is where she ends up at. Is where the fashion designer college is at. And she quickly finds herself, she's kind of an outcast there. All the other students there are kind of more worldly, and they're partying and drinking and just ripping it up. And she's, more innocent and vulnerable, and that's just not her scene whatsoever. So she, kind of feels like a babe in the woods, so to speak. And she's kind of having a hard time finding her footing here in the big city. And she finds basically she moves out of the dorms into her own flat, in London, and meets a lady, an old lady that's played by Diana Rigg, that is renting out the flat. And so soon after she rents out the flat, she goes to bed. She starts dreaming, or she starts having visions. I would call them dreams. And these dreams take place in the 60s in Soho. And she finds herself in the persona of a young girl her age, but back in the 60s in Soho, named Sandie, that is trying to make her way as a singer in the 60s. She wants to be famous. It's her time. It's my time to shine. She's in, 60s London, which, as you may not know, I mean, if you watch any Austin Powers movies, they're probably the best representation that I can think of here, just off the top of my head, as far as like how swinging the 60s were in London. I mean, the 60s in London were like the epicenter of pop culture and just everything, just everything that was hip and cool and groovy. The 60s London was the tops, And so it was very, very cool and hip to be in London in the 60s. And so this singer in the 60s is trying to start her way out in her singing career. And she meets a character named Jack that looks like he might be a manager that can get her off to her singing career, get her jump started into fame and fortune and all that. So, and things don't quite turn out the way that this 60s era singer that Eloise or Ellie is dreaming about here, dreaming about her as, hey, it would be so cool to be this person, this aspiring singer, because Ellie and Eloise, or Ellie is, well, we're just going to call her Ellie for the rest of the podcast. Ellie is, again, like very vulnerable, very shy, where Sandie, who she's dreaming about in the 60s, is very charismatic, very aggressive, and knows what she wants and confident in life, right? And she wants to be her. Or Ellie wants to be Sandie. And Sandie starts finding out that she has wandered unknowingly into kind of a seedy, sleazy underbelly of young girls that want to be a big star, but they get lured into the lion's den of a lot of creepy misogynist men, and things they definitely go dark. And that's where the movie goes from a, hey, coming of age tale, going to fashion designer school, and hey, they're going to make it in the world, to wow. So this is and as it gets darker and more into goes down further into the rabbit hole, that's where this movie gets a little hard to categorize. But it is very intriguing, very it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's got a great soundtrack. Edgar Wright, who directs this movie, he's the same guy who did like Baby Driver. It came out a few years ago. That was a movie that pretty much, and this same movie, this movie is the same way, where Edgar Wright had all the songs, like the 60s era songs, all picked out, and then he kind of designed the movie around the 60s era music, and that's what he did with Baby Driver too, where he just had these obscure and not so obscure kind of pop hits picked out for the soundtrack, and then he would design the scenes and the happenings and the pacing and all that around the songs, the cues, the change in verses, the octaves, the just the verse changes, the song changes, all that. And this movie is not quite like that, but it does show that Edgar Wright is top notch. He is a maestro when it comes to picking the right songs for this movie, and he's got some pretty unsettling '60s songs in this. I mean, when you watch the movie, the plot does get creepy and unsettling, and he's got some unsettling '60s songs. Kind of like like there's the song "Anyone Who Had a Heart" by Cilla Black. When you hear that song in this movie, you're gonna start kind of getting that feeling like, okay, this movie is getting a little creepy crawly under your skin. This might not be a feel good inspirational tale. It's gonna go somewhere else, and so it's just a good movie to if you it's a good thriller, but also some people might be scared by it, and it does have some what some might consider some unsettling gore and blood effects in it. Unfortunately, I watch way too many horror movies and gory horror movies that I wasn't really phased. Except, I lied. There is a montage where it's you're like, whoa, wow, that is brutal. That is brutal, and it really but it's part of the movie. It's not exploitative. It really is essential to the plot, to the story, and it just makes it all that much more shocking and jarring when you see it. This movie's got a lot of creepy effects in it too. The visual effects are outstanding. The visual effects that make up like the spirits and the apparitions and the figments of Ellie's imagination, and a lot of spirits of dead victims and creepy things in the walls, and you'll know what I mean when you watch the movie. And I think you'll agree that it does give you a creepy vibe and a very unsettling vibe when you watch the movie there. But it is, but in an entertaining way, if that makes any sense. But it's it's a movie that you should definitely check out. And I'll be honest with you, when I first left the theater, I didn't have that feeling like, oh my God, like this movie was, wow, it was earth-shattering, it was life-changing, this movie is just stupendous, and oh my God, I can't believe it. It wasn't right away. It was one of those things where it's one of those movies where I just had to, let it settle a little bit. I just had to go on and leave the movie, go on about my life, and and then like an hour or two later, I started kind of like the movie started kind of creeping back into my head, thoughts about it and characters and events and plot twists in the movie, and it started kind of making a home in my old noggin. It started putting a tent up in my medulla oblongata, in my cortex in my brain. I got to started staying there. I started thinking about it. And I was like, wow, I remember that happened. And okay, why did that? Oh, that's right. That's why that happened in the movie. And wow, that is intriguing. Okay, now I understand why that happened. And how could I have not seen that when I watched that movie? Oh, that's how that. I found myself doing that, thinking about stuff, And so I still find myself kind of going back and going through scenes and exploring characters' motivations. So it is, the movie, at least for me, it is sticking with me. So definitely check it out here. The title Last Night in Soho obviously doesn't, reek of horror movie or thriller, and the movie starts off and you'd have, the first, part of the movie, you're like, it's not going to occur to you that it's going to be a kind of a thriller, scary horror kind of, movie at all. But it does, in a very entertaining, very slick way, transitions, to that. And so the main character is played by an actress named Thomasin McKenizie, and a lot of you might not recognize her from anything here. She's been in some lower profile projects. She was in Leave No Trace. I think it was a Netflix movie there. And she turned down a role. She was going to play Jennifer Connelly's daughter in Top Gun Maverick, or she at least was offered the part to play Jennifer Connelly's daughter in Top Gun Maverick with Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer and the whole cast. But she turned it down to do another movie, kind of more of a female ensemble movie that she wanted to do instead of being this big, whopping blockbuster of Top Gun Maverick, which is, we'll finally probably get to see that in about 28 years. So, at some point we'll be able to see that movie. But I kind of get the impression that, Thomasin McKenizie is kind of a, more shyer, kind of, more reserved actress. She's from New Zealand. And she's, she comes out. She does a really great job in this movie. She pulls off the very shy, vulnerable side at the beginning, and then she does, out of necessity, transition into that, the true tough as nails heroine that is fighting for her life in this movie. And then the part of Sandie, the aspiring singer that she idolizes in her dreams back in the 60s, is played by Anya Taylor-Joy. And there's might be a better chance that you might recognize her. She was in the movie Split with James McAvoy. She played one of the girls that crazy James McAvoy in Split, who had all the split personalities, kidnapped. She's mostly known now for, I believe it's a Netflix series, The Queen's Gambit, the chess series. I think it's a series on Netflix called The Queen's Gambit. She's known for that. And like I said, she plays a singer in this movie, and so obviously there's going to be singing, right? And she does her own singing, and her voice is quite exquisite. Yeah, she definitely has the talent of singing in addition to being quite the effervescent actress. And then also, a nice little treat for me is that this movie also has Terence Stamp in it. Terence Stamp, to me, will always be Zod from Superman 2, okay? He played one of the bad guys in Superman 2 way back in the day with Christopher Reeve. He'll always be Zod from Krypton to me. But later on, he was in like the movie Wall Street with Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. But his face has always been like this creepy, threatening, menacing, villainous face that always has something sinister behind it, and it works to a T in this movie. He plays a kind of a red herring of a character in this movie, but he lends a lot, and it's great to see Terence Stamp in this movie because he's not in a whole lot of stuff here anymore, but he lends a lot to this movie. But yeah, just check this out. Hopefully, my review, my description has intrigued you, enticed you to see that movie. Speaking of enticed, I've just got to take another tug off this Boddington's Pub Ale. Yep, like I said, it's very frothy, very smooth, very creamy here. And the Boddington's Pub Ale, if you get it here, they do this aeration packaging of the beer into the can, so it gives it that's what gives it like the real airiness to it, and it gives it a pretty good head on it as well. So, but you'll see what I mean when surely you're going to run out and get yourself some Boddington's Pub Ale. And again, I'm not getting any money from Boddington's Pub Ale. I don't get any money from any of the beers that I review yet. But check it out. Check it out. It definitely will wet your whistle and keep you nice and refreshed. Okay? So, okay. Well, hey, you know what? Again, this podcast is going to be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher. It's on Pandora, and it's going to be on MoviesMerica.com. Also, It's going to be at MoviesMerica.com. And just to let you know, MoviesMerica.com, my website, it does have some podcasts out there that aren't on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. So it's got some extra goodies out on the website. And go ahead and, you know what, feel free to tell your friends, tell your homeboys, tell your comrades, tell your amigos about this podcast. Pass it on. It's good diversion, right? Good diversion. You know, check it out. You know, if you're, you know, sick of hearing about politics or the stock market, you know, and you're like, you know what, I just want to hear about just some good old entertaining movies. Maybe some of the reviews that I do are about movies that aren't so entertaining and aren't so great. I will have to warn you this. Some of the episodes that I'll do are about movies where I'm sure I will regret having gone and seen them, but that's the nature of being a movie reviewer, you know. So I know it's the toughest job in the world, you know. It's the few, the proud, the movie reviewers, right? But in the end, yeah, check out this movie here. Again, thanks for visiting and joining me here. And that's it. Cheerio, mates.
Hey guys, don't leave the video quite yet. Okay, I've got the popo. They're coming after me, and I don't have much time to tell you, but you need to like and subscribe this video right here, down below. It's right down there. It's just waiting. It's waiting for you down there, okay? And make sure you watch these videos over here too. You'll be doing me a big favor. I'll be in handcuffs pretty soon. All right. Thanks for watching.